Season's greetings, you gleeful gaming goblins. Why did I open with that? As the year draws to a close and we all stare down the barrel of 12 more months of whatever horrors life decides to throw at us, let's stop and take a look back at the most important time of the year. A time of connection, sharing, and peace on earth. The Game Awards, of course. What, you thought I was gonna say Christmas? I spent every Christmas alone, drunk, or at the movies. Sometimes all free. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Anywho, the 2024 Game Awards happened a little over a week ago, and they were meant to serve as Keighley's big decade anniversary, so they had to be something special, right? I mean, when you're looking back at it and celebrating 10 years, well, closer to 21 years since Keighley got a start with the Spike Video Game Awards, all the way back in 2003 before jumping ship to start his own show in 2012, which would eventually manifest as the first iteration of what we now call the Game Awards in 2014. Bit confusing, I know, but I digress. Still, when you reach such a milestone and get the chance to reflect upon a decade worth of awards, announcements, and, well, let's be charitable and call them happy little accidents, then you'll want to go all out, right? Spare no expense, put on the biggest and best show possible. Plus, Keighley has worked tirelessly to ingrain his show into the gaming industry, cutting deals with companies both big and small until he had built a bridge to every corner of the proverbial gaming landscape worth exploring, all in an effort to position the Game Awards as the premier rallying point for both industry members and common players alike, and make a shit ton of money while doing that, obviously, but hey, you know. Now, as we look back at a decade of that effort and reap what it has sown, the tremendous occasion was celebrated with a show that was just kind of alright. Tedious at some points, actually, though I will admit some of the new announcements were exciting, but we'll get to that in a moment. You see, for better or for worse, when you sit down for a Keighley Awards show, then, to a certain extent, you know what you're in for. Some genuinely exciting announcements, but staggeringly little time given to the actual awards, and all the while, various celebrities are shunted on stage to do something they're famous for, then fuck off for a paycheck as if they were practicing for their cameo count. Oh, and the Muppets are there for some reason. That description does still more or less fit the 2024 show. In fact, in terms of game announcements, this year definitely had more games that piqued my interest than last year did, and Statler and Waldorf essentially riffing the show as it happened certainly earned a few chuckles, especially when Jeff essentially had some of his previous mistakes thrown back in his face. In fact, that might have been my favorite part of the show, if I'm honest. So it's not as if there weren't highlights or fun moments throughout the night, it was just that the frankly egregious pacing led to long stretches of the show that had me actually screaming at the screen for Jeff to move the fuck on. Conversely, the actual award part of the Game Awards seemed to get less attention than ever before. Shit, there's points where Keighley seemed actively annoyed that he had to present these awards at all.
And the Game Award for audio design goes to Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Congratulations, Ninja Theory.
Not to mention, there were times when awards just got rapid fired so the show could cut to a string of adverts. Shit, there's a point where the show just plays 5 ads in a row, which comes right after they let Snoop Dogg sing an entire song on stage, which in and of itself was an ad for his Fortnite concert. Now, it's worth noting that none of these elements are necessarily new. In fact, the Game Awards has often had to maintain a precarious balance between focusing on the awards, announcing new games and giving updates on previous ones, and rolling out distracting, but ultimately necessary ads that foot the bill for the whole shindig. And to be fair, this isn't even the worst the awards have gotten about this. The 2019 Game Awards were essentially a prolonged advertising campaign for Google fucking Stadia of all things, which in hindsight means the show might as well have been advertising an abandoned strip mall that even the rats won't bother to nest in. But even when I put 2024 into perspective, I can't help but feel that this year's show was particularly patience testing when a good third of it was dedicated to musical performances and or running commercials, and by the end it seems as even the people in charge were running out of enthusiasm for it. Still, I'd be remiss not to point out what I did enjoy about the night. I already mentioned the Muppets, but some of the game industry alumni who were invited certainly injected life into proceedings. Sam Lake was wonderfully charming when he was giving out the Best Narrative Award. Giving a little narration as the screen turned black and white in one big Max Payne reference certainly made his segment one of the most memorable moments of the show. And Amir Savat genuinely professing his love for game makers and the craft of making games before calling out the disgusting amount of layoffs in the past year was both vindicating and emotionally resonating. You could hear the unwavering adoration in Amir's voice and his efforts to build support networks for developers affected by layoffs and help them keep doing what they love while still surviving. It was nothing short of laudable. Speaking of what I enjoyed, I found myself pleasantly surprised when Astrobot won Game of the Year, since I was fairly certain Shadow of the Erdtree was going to take home that prize. I mean, Keighley went out of his way to say DLCs and expansions were eligible for Game of the Year, right before only nominating Erdtree and no other DLCs. It honestly seems like Keighley was making the exception solely to justify Erdtree winning Game of the Year. I know it might sound conspiratorial, but it's no secret that Keighley's pretty friendly with From Software and their publisher Namco, helping market their games by re-uploading their trailers onto the official Game Awards channel, and even going so far as to promote Elden Ring at the 2021 award show of not only a presentation but a whole-ass animatronic of a character from the game. Hell, there was even a new Elden Ring spin-off, Night Rain, announced at the show this year, so in my head, it felt as if Keighley was setting up Erdtree the Win Game of the Year as sort of a promotion for not just the DLC, but the franchise as a whole. Now, me personally, I was really hoping to see Final Fantasy VII Rebirth take home the prize since I'm a huge mark for Final Fantasy, and I absolutely loved Rebirth to bits, even considering it worth upgrading to a PS5 Pro for so I can experience the best possible version of it, at least until the PC port drops. But when Game of the Year was finally revealed to be Astrobot, I was pretty surprised, but ultimately not frustrated. Sure, I was a little disappointed my personal choice wasn't the winner, but seeing a 3D platformer of all genres, let alone one that inspires such a pure sense of joy and discovery, get its flowers on the biggest stage imaginable, more than made up for that. Astrobot is a phenomenal game brimming with clever level design, a huge amount of collectibles and secrets, all of which are satisfying to find, and an undying reverence for PlayStation's history with countless Easter eggs that range from the obvious to pretty deep cuts that only longtime fans are gonna get. They even added fucking Gex to the game. They added the funny meme lizard. Even if it wasn't my choice per se, I can respect and appreciate that Astrobot absolutely deserved the award just as much as any of the nominees, so I'm glad it won at the end of the day, especially if its success demonstrates that AAA 3D platformers deserve a larger space in the industry than they have now. Come on, Microsoft, make a new Banjo-Kazooie. You know you want to do it. You have all these talented developers who could do it. Come on. Alright, let me not get sidetracked. I could talk about a new Banjo game all day. Another genre I was still happy with, even if my preferred game didn't win, was Best Debut Indie. I really wanted to see Plucky Squire take that home since I had a feeling it wasn't going to win Best Family, and lo and behold, I was right. But I can totally understand why Balatro not only took that award, but two more with Best Mobile and Best Indie. The game's simple yet ingenious adaptation of poker into the roguelite genre had all the right ingredients to become utterly addicting to the point where it was absolutely captivating players from moment one. And it's a one-man dev team too, which makes it extra impressive. Local Funk has already earned himself a devoted fan base in the indie gaming scene. Where he goes next, both with and beyond Balatro, is anyone's guess, but I can already tell I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him and hyping myself up if/when he's got another game on the horizon. Tekken 8 winning Best Fighting Game was pretty damn obvious, if for no other reason than it was the biggest profile fighting game that dropped this year and people were singing its praises from day one. And hey, there's the announcement of Clive Rothfield from Final Fantasy 16 coming to the game's roster to coincide with that win, so funny how that works, you know? No real question there, even if I still voted for the Marvel vs. Capcom collection myself, because of how important that release was for preserving a series of games that are not only classics in their own right, but arguably foundational to fighting game genre as a whole. I knew MVC winning was a bit of a long shot, but I had to stick with what was, in my opinion, the most important fighting game release, not just of the year, but in a long time. And honestly, I'm mostly just happy Multiverses didn't win anything, because the fact that that fucking mess even got nominated is baffling to me, when Rivals of Aether 2 was right there, came out this year, covers the same subgenre of platform fighters, and it's just infinitely better. Again, in my opinion. More power to you, but fuck me, I found that game rough, to put it mildly. That might be a whole other topic. So yeah, Tekken winning was no big shot, but even still, congrats to Harada and the team at Bandai for the award, and I should probably pick that game up again soon, since I'm really curious what those new characters are going to feel like. We got Clive, and hey, maybe Tifa could join the roster soon? We can have 2 Final Fantasy characters, right? That ain't too much, is it? Alright, moving on. I'll admit, I don't have many opinions on Best Esports Team, Best Esport Athlete, and Best Content Creator, other than a hearty congrats to everyone who won. Queso, Faker, and the team behind T1 all seem like decent folks. At least, I hope they are. If anything bad comes out about them, I didn't know at the time. I swear to God. I just wrote this video. As of now, they seem cool, so don't call me out if they do something awful. So, hey, it's genuinely cool that these people got to enjoy such a spotlight on their work, especially a dude who was fucking presented like this. Just fucking beautiful. This man looks like he's in the middle of a 3-day bender, and this is how they chose to represent him at the biggest award show of the year. I fucking love it. If I ever get nominated at the Game Awards for Best Content Creator, I want to capture this energy right here. After that came Best Multiplayer, which went to Helldivers 2, which is only a little surprising since it managed to outshine Call of Duty. I figured COD would have had that locked down, but nope. Helldivers took the prize, and honestly, it was well deserved. That game takes the horde shooter genre and just imbues it with a sense of sheer fucking chaos that I've never seen in a game before. You're blasting enemies to bit 1 minute and getting crushed by your own supply drop the second. It's one of the most purely entertaining multiplayer games I've played in a while, so I get the feeling it's gonna be one of those forever games like Team Fortress 2, where just people just play it and play it and play it for fucking years after the fact. Speaking of Helldivers, it also won Best Ongoing, which means it won half of the categories in which it was nominated. That's pretty damn good for a game that I don't think people really had a lot of expectations for when it first released, even when it was first revealed. Like, I wasn't even aware of the first game and I didn't know anybody who was, so I figured 2 would just sort of fly under the radar, but nope, it managed to hook enough of an audience to make Helldivers a household name in a way other games could only dream of. Though on a side note, I do think it's a little silly that Helldivers also got nominated for Best Action Game. I'll admit that Action Game is a bit of a vague term. Even Call of Duty is put in that category this year, but for my money, an action game means something a little more melee-oriented. A game like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, even Dynasty Warriors if you want to stretch the definition a little. Maybe it's an arbitrary distinction, but I would have personally put Rise of the Ronin, 7 Rebirth, or even Hellblade 2 in that spot instead. I guess it's a moot point since Black Myth Wukong ended up winning that award, but I don't know, the nominees this year just felt a little weird for action game. Like the folks behind the awards didn't really have enough obvious action games, and just looked for a few extra games they could fit into the bill well enough. Baldur's Gate 3 won Best Community Support, which is understandable. The devs at Larian have been polishing that game to a fine sheen ever since it released last year, and they even put out an official mod tool this year so people can make their own characters, quests, or just amusing little alterations to keep the game alive practically forever. Larian 110% deserves Best Community Support as an award, even if I sometimes wonder what the difference between Best Community Support and Best Ongoing are. Like, by definition, to keep a game ongoing successfully, you need to support the community who plays it, because if the people stop playing it, then it's not really ongoing, is it? Or at least there's no reason for it to be ongoing. Do you get what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but I feel like those two awards could be rolled into one, and you wouldn't be missing out on that much. Like, I understand why some awards still exist as separate categories despite possible overlap. Best Indie and Best Debut Indie, for example. The indie scene is all about cultivating new talent and letting aspiring devs get their footing, so it makes sense that if an already established indie dev puts out a big game that year, then you'll still want to shine a spotlight on someone new while not snubbing said established dev. But Best Ongoing and Best Community just feel a little too similar to me, so maybe it's time to smush them together and make room for a new category like Best DLC. I mentioned this in my pre-awards video, but if Keighley really want to have Erdtree here, then he should have just implemented a Best DLC/expansion category. DLC has been an inseparable element of gaming since I was a fucking kid, and it's not like you don't have a few options for nominees. There's Dawntrail for Final Fantasy XIV, Rising Tide for Final Fantasy XVI, Final Shape for Destiny 2, Vessel of Hatred for Diablo 4. You've got your pick of the litter, so just go for it and try to put those together for a category. The more I watch these shows, the more I can't help but see the fat that can maybe be trimmed in certain sections, and how when you trim that, you make room for something better. And speaking of trimming the fat, this is getting a bit long in the tooth, so let me pull a page from Keighley's book and rapid fire some of the remaining categories. Metaphor won Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, and Best RPG overall, which makes me scream at myself all the louder to finally finish that fucking game. It's a phenomenal title, but I just haven't had the time to finish it, and same goes for Neva, winner for the best game for impact. Prince of Persia won Best Innovation and Accessibility, which is completely deserved. As someone who absolutely loves Metroidvanias, there are some features in that game that should just be genre standard in my opinion. Like the ability to record little videos of a section so you can remember what power-up you need to get before coming back to unlock a certain area or upgrade. I fucking love it. And by the way, that game was just incredible in general. It's one of the best games Ubisoft has put out in recent years, and it's a shame it was fucked over so hard. Astrobot took home the Best Family Game Award, as I suspected it would, since even though this category is usually a Nintendo shoe-in, Nintendo didn't really put out anything stellar this year, so it's not surprising that Astrobot took the award instead. Astrobot also took home the Best Game Direction Award, which I would agree with, although if I had to change anything about this award, I wish it was Best Game Director, so instead of just listing the game, it actually lists the name of the director, which in Astrobot's case is Nicolas Doucet. It's a small thing, but it would focus more on the people behind the games rather than just another award focused on the game itself. Just a little thing to me. Hellblade 2 getting Best Audio Design was a no-brainer. Ninja Furies are masters at using audio to enhance the story of their games, and both the Hellblade games are sublime examples of their talent. The little whispers you hear when Senua is trying to focus and all the little voices chattering in the back of her skull is fucking chilling. If there was ever a set of games that demanded an investment in a nice set of headphones, it would be the Hellblade duology. Unfortunately, my favorite game of the year, FF7 Rebirth, only won one award, but that award was Best Score, and if there was going to be any award this game won, it would have been that one. The original FF7 has some of the most memorable, emotionally impactful, and downright iconic music in the entire gaming medium, and Rebirth modernized those tracks with masterful skill, so I'm glad it at least got this award. I have nothing to say on Best Esports Game since I'm not a huge esport person, other than rubbernecking whatever mess the Smash community has gotten itself in this week. Same with Best Sports/Racing, that's never been my jam outside of the Mario sports games, and some of the really old SNES/early N64 and PS1 era games like NBA Jam. Best Sim went to Frostpunk 2, which I hadn't played. In fact, the only game I have played in the Sim category was Unicorn Overlord, and it was fun, but ultimately didn't hold my attention for that long. Best Action Adventure also went to Astrobot, which, again, Action Adventure feels so nebulous as a genre, I question why it's even an award at the show. Feels like it's just like a grab bag of games every year in terms of nominations. And finally, we have Best VR, which went to Batman Arkham Shadow, And man, I really need to just get a good VR setup going. It seems incredibly fun to me, but I've never been able to get my hands on a good headset and have the room to make it work. The closest I ever got was trying out that weird Labo VR that Nintendo did a few years ago for the Super Mario Odyssey missions, and even then I probably put it down after like a fucking hour. So yeah, I haven't really dived into VR yet, but I want to one day. And well, that wraps up the actual awards section of the show, and I have to say, I was pretty happy with the winners overall this year. Even if I didn't agree with every individual choice, there was no award where I won bullshit or outright thought the outcome was stupid. I mostly just found myself wishing Keighley didn't gloss over so many of the awards. Like, don't just say Hellblade 2 gets best audio, congrats Ninja Fury. Let someone from Ninja Fury come up on stage, give some insight on the audio design and how they use the sound to build up the atmosphere of Hellblade 2. If you're gonna have these awards, then give them time and respect like they deserve. You can do with one less fucking musical number if it means actually focusing on the game awards at the bloody award show. Oh, but to be honest here, I suppose that's not why Jeff puts this show on now, is it? The awards are at best a pretense, a marketing stunt where companies can shove ads and trailers for their newest projects in and have it vaguely tie in. And on that note, the show had quite a few world premieres sprinkled in there. As I mentioned earlier, FromSoft offered a new Elden Ring spin-off, Night Rain, which will have a co-op focus, though you can still play it single player if you want more of a straight expand-alone to Elden Ring. A variety of CG trailers for Witcher 4, a new Onimusha, Okami free. Yes, it technically is free because there was Okami done on the DS's too, and Naughty Dog's newest game, Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, which is sort of going for this retro futuristic sci-fi vibe that calls back to the 1980s, as if we haven't had enough media in the last 15 years reminding us of how cool the 80s were. Totally not played right the fuck out. Well, it is admittedly exciting to know beloved series like Onimusha and Okami are coming back. I can't draw much from any of these trailers since they're all just CG, and they rarely reflect the game beyond the surface level. It is cool to know that Ciri is going to be the main character of Witcher 4, but otherwise, I would like to see some actual gameplay. Just a CG trailer doesn't really excite me anymore at this point. For now, I'm certainly intrigued, but until I see gameplay from any of these games, I can't bring myself to be properly excited, you know? There were also several updates for current games, mainly Fortnite and quite a few mobile games, some of which I couldn't even properly understand, like solo leveling for instance. Look at this trailer and tell me you can decipher anything about the plot or gameplay of this fucking thing, because I certainly...
Are you the king of the humans?
Your trailer is leaving me more mystified than intrigued, then it's failed as a trailer in my opinion. Oh, and there was a trailer for what may or may not be a crypto game on the name of Catly. Some channels have already done investigations on it and it just seems kind of sketchy. The trailer itself was just pure uncanny valley and I have no idea why Jeff even let that into the show, other than he was probably paid a fuck ton of money for it. So even when it comes to the trailers, there's already a lot of fluff and filler that I found myself either bored or confused by. As for the games that actually showed off some fucking gameplay in their trailers, Borderlands 4 showed up here, and yeah, it's certainly Borderlands and I'm okay with that. So as long as 4 retains the grippingly fulfilling gameplay loop of constantly getting better guns, filling out your skill sheet, and fine-tuning your Vault Hunter to your preferred playstyle, then I'll be happy. Plus the payoff of the Iridian subplot that's been building in the background since the very first game is something longtime fans, myself included, have been absolutely clamoring for, so this could be a landmark for the series if it's handled well. Of course, it could also be unimaginably disappointing, but hey, let's try to be a little optimistic here. Koei Tecmo showed off a new Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, a fast-paced pixel art hack-and-slash game that involves Ryu Hayabusa taking on a menacing menagerie of demons. If the game style seems familiar at all, that's because Koei hired the Game Kitchen, the indie studio behind Blasphemous 1 and 2, that helmed the project, and their unique style of pixel combat shines through even in the small snippets that we got in the reveal trailer. It looks absolutely fantastic, and it's slated for next summer, so not long to wait. Oh, and there's Shadow Labyrinth, a dark and edgy 2D Metroidvania based off Pac-Man, or more specifically the secret level episode of Pac-Man. What? Why? I'm gonna be real, this is giving me Bomberman Act Zero vibes a bit. Trying to make Pac-Man edgy and serious feels like missing the point a little bit. He's a fucking yellow circle that fights ghosts. Not everything needs to be a dark sci-fi epic a la Dune. Still, the actual gameplay looks interesting though. I am a sucker for 2D Metroidvania, so if the map design is good and the mechanics are solid, then I'll probably at least have a little bit of fun with this, even if it is a bizarre direction for the series. Plus, I'm not super annoyed by this because I doubt it will be the only version of the character going forward. In the end, it'll probably just be another in a very long line of interpretations that vary up Pac-Man's already extensive history. Well, that's about everything at the show that caught caught my attention in terms of announcements. There were a few more things in there. Dispatch looks fun, a game about running a superhero dispatch center to help people and fight crime. The trailer was charming, but this genre isn't usually up my alley, and I'm not even sure if my love of superheroes can overcome that. Still, I might give it a try and see if it can sneak its way into my heart. A new Turok game is on the way, Turok Origins, real original fucking title there. Plus the gameplay didn't exactly look too special, so while I might give this a try in the future, I'm not exactly looking forward to it. Oh, and Pal World got an update, which I only find worth mentioning because the Pal spheres are suspiciously missing after that patent suit from Nintendo. Funny how that works. A spiritual successor to Thief got announced in there. Looks good, but again, very little on the trailer, so I can't really judge it right now. Oh, and last and certainly least, Squid Game is getting a video game, and it looks blisteringly awful. It's like if Fall Guys was a cheaply made tie-in game for the PS3, and I mean first fucking year of the PS3 too. Yikes. I get the feeling this isn't going to stick in the public's consciousness for much longer, but hey, if you're one of the 5 people in Netflix gaming, you can try this out, I suppose, if you want to waste your time. And with that, I think I've covered everything worth talking about at this show, and so how was it overall? Well, I'll be honest, my opinion is kind of stretched to two opposite ends of the extreme here. On the one hand, I felt good about most, if not all, of the winners of the actual awards, and there were some announcements that I am really excited about, and a few more that have my attention at the very least, and some of the skits were admittedly kind of fun, at least when they felt relevant to the show and didn't overstay their welcome. But when this show dragged, fuck me did it drag. Other than the 2019 show, I don't think there's been a single Game Awards show where I got more impatient than this one. Those musical segments went on for way too long, and most of the celebrities felt completely out of place and like they didn't care one iota about what they were doing until it was time to go home and collect a fucking check. Nevermore have I wanted to fast forward button more on a live stream. Look, I know Jeff wants this show to be prestigious. He wants it to bridge the gap between the game industry and the rest of the entertainment landscape, and most importantly, he wants to turn a profit on this unwieldy mess that he's managed to keep running for a decade. But you gotta take some of that energy and relocate it to where it really matters, which are the games and the people behind them. When the show really stopped to let the award winners speak about what these games meant to them, how they brought these games into the world with love and passion, really showing the heart and soul that goes into each and every project, it was touching. It was really affecting. And I'm not saying you can't have your celebrity guests or big orchestra numbers in there. By all means, keep those things. They're really fun in moderation. But when they begin to overtake the show and become more important than the actual awards, then something has gone terribly wrong. Look, I know I bitched a lot in this video, but I enjoy the Game Awards as a program. I look forward to it every year, and in some regards, I view it as a fun part of the holidays. It's a celebration of gaming as a passion and an art form. And while I understand that this needs to keep making money in order to justify being made, something about this year's show felt even more outright cynical than usual. The way the awards were just pushed to the side so hard they felt like an unwanted tag-along during their own event. The fact that most of the earnest and most genuine moments were drowned out by constant commercials really did put a damper on things for me. So while I still enjoyed this year's show, and fingers crossed I'll be here for the next one, there do need to be some major changes in my opinion. Less ads and less fucking around with inane skits and musical numbers. You can have your world premieres, but give more time to the developers and the passionate alumni of the gaming industry who come here to share their stories, share their love of gaming to the world. Because at the end of the day, a show like this should be a spotlight for the best and brightest that gaming has to offer. And this year, it felt like the light wanted to be anywhere else but there, which is a shame to me. But hey, I suppose that's just my opinion. How did you all out there feel about the Game Awards? Did you have a good time, or were you also a little irritated by the level of advertising and so much of the time being dedicated to celebrity guests? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe, and follow my blog.